A very good morning and a warm welcome to Ask the Expert, an award-winning daily series from 8:30 a.m. to 9 a.m. to help small businesses. If you would like any questions answered live on air, then feel free to ask any questions in the comments or use the hashtag QBATE, that's QBATE on Twitter. If you need any more advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts just like myself are on hand 24/7. During the live session, we'll be running a poll, so please do engage, and we will reveal the results at the end. Okay, who am I? My name is Aaron Patrick, and it's a pleasure to be with you again. I'm a chartered accountant, QuickBooks certified trainer, so don't be afraid to ask me any QuickBooks-related questions. And I have dedicated QuickBooks YouTube channel called Aaron Patrick, the QuickBooks Chap. So if you need any more QuickBooks news and advice, then why not go over there and give the channel a follow? Also, I own a state-of-the-art accounting firm called Boffix, which uses the latest in cloud technology available to help small businesses just like yourself get crucial real-time information when they need it at their fingertips. If you require accounting advice, payroll, bookkeeping service, and even QuickBooks online training, plus a whole lot more, then please do get in touch. We don't want small businesses just to survive, but thrive. Boffix also has a YouTube channel, with content dedicated to small business called Boffix Tax Tips. Okay, enough about me, and let's focus on today's session. As always, this session is all about you and your burning questions. If you have a question, then please do get in touch with the social channels. So while we wait for the first question to arrive, let's talk about some recent issues that our clients are facing. And obviously that's going to be with the recent impending lockdown. So the lockdown is due for Thursday. And in a nutshell, unlike last time I was on Ask the Expert, where we were talking about the tier systems and local lockdowns and everything else, we're now going into national lockdown, which means when it comes to the effect and the impact on businesses, it's going to be pretty significant. Just like earlier in the year, businesses are going to be asked to close the doors, and if possible, they're going to be asked to work from home. So there are going to be a lot of businesses out there who's going to be a little bit concerned, and rightly so, about the financial side of things. So let's talk about what's on offer. Let's talk about what aid is available so that you can be as prepared as you possibly can be. By far the most important news that we've received, though, is that furlough has been extended, aptly named the Extended Furlough Scheme. This scheme is very similar to what we have seen in the past, and the idea is that you're paid upfront for 80% of the salary of an employee. And then it's up to you as an employer, just like before, if you want to put that up to the rest, 100%. The max is $2,500, and we've been told it's going until December. Eligibility wise, as an employer, as long as you have a UK bank and a UK PAYE scheme, then you are eligible for the scheme. And one of the key things about this particular part of the scheme, or the fact that it's now been extended, is that you don't need to have previously used the scheme before. So if you remember, there was that whole cutoff point that was way back when the first scheme was announced. That now doesn't exist. The actual cutoff point for this particular scheme was the 30th of October. So that was only on Friday. Now, what I mean by that cutoff point is you need to have made sure that your employees and the employees available were already in a payroll scheme and already been paid by that point. We've still got flexible furlough as well, and that flexible furlough can work in line with the standard furlough. So you've still got that opportunity. And the last support scheme that I talked about, the job support scheme, has currently been postponed. So what we expect to see, and no, we've not had any actual official word on it yet, but we expect the job support scheme to come in line with whenever the extended furlough scheme finishes. There's also grants from the council, so from £1,334 to a maximum of £3,000, depending on what your rateable value is going to be. So just like the rates and the £10,000 we had at the beginning, it's all going to be based on what your rateable value is going to be, and then there's going to be grants available. These tend to be on a monthly basis this time around, and it tends again to be based on your rateable value. So if you are paying rates or and you need that sort of grant, then do look into there. There's also, curiously, a £1.1 billion worth of aid that's been passed to local authorities. And the idea of this is it's to support support small businesses on a one-off basis. So just keep an eye on your local authorities, have a look and see what's on their website. Every single one of them have different criteria. Every single one of them are looking at different types of businesses, but do have a look and see if there's any extra funding available for yourself. There's also good news for absolutely everyone out there, so not just for businesses, but for your personal side of things as well. and that the mortgage holidays have been extended. They were actually due to be finished on, it was Sunday it was going to be, but actually that's now been extended. So we've had confirmation that's been extended. So that's going to be a great help to people from a financial point of view. We do expect more news to be coming from Rishi about all these different schemes and especially things like the mortgage holiday and how that will be impacted. And we're expected to have an announcement anytime on that. Still the same though, and one of the things that we really do need to kind of push home on in terms of cash flow and helping small business out there is the bounce back loan is still around. Now, technically, that's due to close on the 30th of November, but we do expect at least some form of extension or some form of eligibility to carry forward past there. Just a reminder exactly how that scheme works. The bounce back loan, you get to borrow from £2,000 to £50,000. The idea is it's dependent on 25% of your actual turnover. And the perks of the scheme, if you like, or the perks of the loan, is that the first 12 months is completely interest free and repayment free, and you have a maximum of 10 years to make that repayment. So when it comes to needing cash for a business and trying to keep a business afloat, the bounce back loan is definitely the one to go for. Just talk to your bank and see you go from there. Also, don't forget, as a support option, there's also the coronavirus statutory sick pay rebate scheme. So that's still available to you. So if you do have staff that's been affected by corona, then please do make sure that you look into seeing if you've got eligibility for that. And currently, as it stands at the moment, we've had no news on the self-employed income support scheme. So we don't know how that's going to be affected or anything else. But we do normally see that that falls in line with furlough. So as furlough's been updated to a percentage or downgraded to a percentage, normally SEIS is follow suit. So fingers crossed that that comes through as well. So there's quite a lot to take in. And just like we had with the last lockdown, there's a lot of support out there. It's just making sure that we find the right support for the right business. So in summary, one thing to remember, furlough has been extended to December. So that's the most important news out of all of this. And it's at 80%. Flexible furlough is still around and is still allowed to be worked while within the furlough scheme itself. And the job support scheme has been postponed for now. Grants are available for rateable premises, just like it was before, but this time it's on a month-by-month basis. And basically, that's where the most of the impact is going to come. What my biggest advice to all small businesses is do look at your local authorities, do look at those councils, have a look at what schemes are what grants are available. I know personally from our clients, a lot of our clients have been able to go to their local authorities. They've had to submit very small amount of documentation. So normally it's a set of previous year accounts or maybe a cash flow forecast or something along those lines, just to show that they've been affected by corona in some way. And that's normally how they've been given the grants and been passed over the grants from there. So do have a look at that and do make sure that that's available. And that's pretty much an update of what we know so far. There's still more to know, so please do keep an eye on Ask the Expert each and every morning. If there has been an update, I'm pretty confident we'll be able to get that over to you as soon as possible. There's a lot to take in there. So let's look at, first of all, your wonderful questions. Remember, as a final reminder, if you do have any questions whatsoever, please make sure you use the question box or use hashtag QBATE on Twitter to get your questions over to me. Much like our first question that's come through from Christina Harlow from Facebook Live. Hello, Christina. Hope you're doing okay. Hi, Aaron. Great to see you on here again. We have a Saturday girl on trial over the last few weeks, and we're intending to add her to the payroll next weekend. We are due to lockdown as it's not an essential service. Is she eligible for furlough? Great question there, Christina. And just for context, this has kind of happened to quite a few businesses that we've talked to. Basically, the way that the furlough scheme is, or the eligibility, should I say, for furlough scheme is that you had to have had that person on the payroll by the 30th of October. So that was Friday. Now, when I say on the payroll, what I mean by that is the fact that they must have already have been put on the scheme, on the payroll scheme, and must have had a submission from an RTI. If for whatever reason that they've not been put on the scheme and they weren't on there, then by the looks of what the scheme has been, when you look at the fine print, looks like you're not going to be eligible. But the best thing to do is just make sure that you get that information in. If you've got an accountant doing it for you, or if you're doing it yourself, just make sure you get everything up to date. Have a look at trying to make sure that everything is there and in place. And then hopefully from there, we've had before where we've been able to contact HMRC, we've been able to talk to them, and they've been able to actually reopen up a scheme just because of an admin error or whatever the reason's going to be. So there is always opportunities there. But on the whole, the eligibility side of things is that they must have already been on the payroll by that point. So if they weren't on the payroll, we're going to have some communication. Hopefully, though, you're going to be able to get something sorted out there. It's quite a common theme, that one we've seen from our clients, where people weren't put on it before. So let's make sure that we get them on as soon as possible. And going forward, just remember how crucial the real-time information part of payroll is. The whole point of payroll at the moment is that every time you make a payment to someone, you're confirming that with HMRC, you're submitting that information. So let's make sure going forward that we get everything submitted. We've got Duncan from Twitter DM. Hi, Duncan. How's it going? I read that the furlough scheme has been extended. What does it mean for new announcement that was made earlier? What will be the contribution percentage of the government towards wages now? Great question there, Duncan, and it's one that a lot of people are asking at the moment. So basically, when it comes to all those other extension or those other schemes, should I say, like the job support scheme and everything that goes with it, well, those schemes have been postponed. So the idea is that the furlough scheme has been put back into play to pretty much how it was before. You've got 80% that will be able to be eligible to be claimed back, just like we had at the beginning of lockdown. The only small thing to remember, though, is national insurance isn't going to be included in there, but that is only a small part of what that payroll is. So it's still, the fact that we're getting 80% of those wages is still a huge boost and something that we should be really looking to take advantage of. When it comes to what contribution of government towards wages now, it's exactly that 80%, but that doesn't mean that you don't have to just pay your employees that. You still, just like before, have the opportunity to pay them up to 100 or reduce them to 80, just like we had before, just like we spoke about at the very start of all this. So do make sure that from a government point of view or from a statutory point of view and from a contract point of view with your employees, that you just make sure that you get the right documentation over to them. So we really believe in using a firm called Ferrilio, who's one of the ASSI experts who come on QuickBooks ASSI expert on a regular basis. So we use their solution to be able to make sure that our staff and all our clients will also get that notice. But basically, you just need to explain to them, do exactly what we did before, make sure they have the notices sent to them, make sure their contracts are updated accordingly, and then you'll be able to make sure you take advantage of the scheme. So hopefully that's enough there, Duncan. Hopefully you'll be able to get some information there. Rachel from Facebook Messenger asks, hi Rachel, I'm unsure about how the lockdown will affect my supply chain. Is there any clarity that goods can be transported during the lockdown? I know restaurants have been dependent on food deliveries for income. Well, from what we've been told, there's no reason why we shouldn't be able to allow deliveries. There's nothing out there that says that any delivery service has to be closed. In fact, there's an encouragement that deliveries are still to be done, and home deliveries definitely are something that we are encouraged to push towards, as opposed to asking people to go out and actually pick up their own supplies. In your particular case, though, the one thing I'd be careful of there, Rachel, is just about the factories and the places that deliveries are coming from. It's there that they could find difficulties, they could find issues. So all I would say on your case is, just to make sure that you've got opportunities and supply chains around that can cope with this change. And hopefully, fingers crossed, that they are going to have opportunities to make sure that their area is a COVID-safe workspace, and that hopefully they'll be able to continue operating to at least some form of capacity. If it's anything like that last lockdown, most of those services were still around. It was just the fact that they were reduced capacity. That's where most of the problem came to. So hopefully, fingers crossed, you're not affected yourself. Hopefully, there's ways in which you can make sure that you keep your business going during this time. So that tends to be how we kind of look at it, is kind of how the factories themselves are affected. Mason from Facebook Messenger says, hello, Mason. Morning, Aaron. What's the difference between job support scheme open and job support scheme closed? So the idea here is the fact that the job support scheme itself, which was created as a way really to kind of bring back or trying to bridge from going from full furlough down to fully non-supported, non-furlough scheme. The job support scheme was designed to be kind of a midway house. It was designed to make it so that most of the the relief available were for those employees who weren't able to be able to actually come back to work on a full-time basis, mainly because their particular employer or their particular business that they were working for weren't able to have that interaction and weren't able to be able to be at full capacity. So what you'll tend to find in them situations was the job support scheme was designed to try and support those people who were only able to come back on a part-time basis. Now, the fact that the job support scheme has been postponed means that everything that we learned about the job support scheme, everything we knew about the job support scheme is kind of up for debate at the moment now, because if and when they bring that back, it might be in a completely different scheme than it was before. So what I would just remember is the fact that that has now been postponed. That's all we know about the scheme, is that there's a postponement, and that we expect then whenever that comes back into play, or whatever it's called when it comes back into play, to have different criteria and everything else goes with it. So the most important thing to remember is that as it's been postponed, extended furlough is there, and we're going to be moving back to the extended furlough. What's the next question? The next question is from Agatha. I hope that's helpful for you, Mason. Agatha from Facebook Messenger asks, have there been any new announcement regarding loans? What's the deadline for applying for bounce back loans? I want to have a backup of capital in case my business is badly affected due to lockdown. And that's exactly right there, Agatha. And it's a huge topic at the moment. Now, when it comes to announcement-wise, we haven't heard anything. Currently, it's supposed to end on the 30th of November, the bounce back loan, that is. That's supposed to be the end for, or the date in which the last of the entries are supposed to be able to go through. But we're being mindful, we're being fingers crossed here, and hoping there'll be some announcement at some point that comes along with it. What we hope for is some sort of extension or some sort of opportunity to be out there, but we've just not been told anything on that. And especially, I think this is more prevalent to anything, is for those small businesses who are using kind of challenger banks. So, you know, your Starlings, your Revoluts, and those ones where they haven't been able to access those funds yet. For those sort of clients, what we've been trying to help them with and trying to push them towards is just get yourself into one of the other bank accounts, you know, one of your high street banks who have got the eligibility. When you go onto their main website, you should be able to see if they're eligible or not for bounce back loans, because that's normally the most important kind of aspect to their front page at the moment for any business bank. So do make sure that you keep an eye on them and do see if that's available to you or not. But basically what it is you need to get yourself on one of those banks that's up and running. You need to be able to make sure you can get that application in by the 30th of November. Failing that, let's just hope that there is some sort of extension to the bounce back loan or some form of way in which we can make sure that you get that access to capital. But the bounce back loan is by far the best opportunity for you, and I would highly recommend, Agatha, that you go looking at ways in which you can get yourself security of that particular loan. Eleanor from Facebook Live asks, as a freelancer, am I able to furlough myself? Great question there, Eleanor. And it's quite an open-ended question though. The basically TDLR of that one is the fact that it all depends on what type of business you are. Now, just guessing from the fact that you are a freelancer, not giving us any more information there. If you own a limited company, then as a director, furlough will still be active just like it was at the start of lockdown. So again, as long as you've been on the payroll, as long as you've been paying yourself the director salary amount, then you can look at making sure that you can get furlough from there itself. So 80% of a director salary contribution. And if you are a sole trader, then we're still not 100% sure what's happening with SEIS. So that's the Self-Employment Income Support Scheme. But, you know, fingers crossed that there'll be some sort of announcement of that, and hopefully it'll fall, as it has with the rest of the scheme, it should fall in line with what furlough's been. Freya from Instagram Desktop, hopefully that helps out. Freya from Instagram DM says, hi Aaron, hello Freya, how's it going? Any advice on how to reduce costs and avoid employee redundancies during this lockdown? It's the same news that we've kind of been talking about through the lockdown or the previous lockdown. It's all about making sure that from a business point of view, that you just try and pare back on as many of the costs as you possibly can. Again, communication is going to be key. So just like the beginning of lockdown, it was all about talking to your supply chains. It was talking to your if you're renting, so talking to anyone relating to any of those costs, and just trying to come up to some sort of arrangement, some sort of agreement. The thing is, now that we're back into national lockdown again, is everyone's in the same boat. So everyone's going to be going through the same issues, the same problems. So it's all about trying to come to an arrangement, an agreement with all your different supply chains and going from there. We kind of come to a point now where it's all just trying to make sure that we can reduce those costs as much as possible, or at least try and reduce the burden on a month-by-month basis. And then that will give us an opportunity to be able to make sure that those grants and the support schemes I've just gone through and all the elements we've gone through above are all then going to be able to come in there, and we'll just make sure that money goes as far as possible. But literally the most important thing for you at the moment is just be communication. Just talk to all of your kind of expenses out there and just see what's happening and go from there. Limery from Facebook Live asks, are the schemes different if you're a sole trader? Excellent question there, and it's one that we're still waiting for an exact answer for this moment in time. When it comes to the furlough scheme and how the furlough scheme works, unfortunately that is only on people who are on an employed basis. So you're looking at limited companies or a sole trader and their employees and everything else. But you as an employee or you as a sole trader yourself are not eligible for the furlough scheme. So just keep that in mind and make sure that you're kind of aware of that, and then just keep your ears ready for if there is an announcement regarding the self-employed income support scheme. We've still got that scheme still going through, so we're still expecting some form of payments coming through. There's still some payments that are going, and originally it was supposed to fall in line with job support scheme, so we were expecting something, but obviously we're hoping, or we're looking out there to see and listen to see if there's any kind of announcement, if that's going to change or not. But this self-employed income support scheme is still there. So if you were eligible before, then you should be able to see that there'll be at least something relating to that as well. Liam from Twitter DM asks, hi Aaron, is there any extension on mortgage payment holidays? There certainly is, Liam. This has been one of the big ones, really, that was really great news that came through from that Friday or over the weekend, shall I say. The fact that the mortgage payment holidays were due to end, they have been extended, which basically means that you're going to have the opportunities. Now, how that works and everything else, we're still waiting for kind of clarification and exactly what the impact's going to be. But the most important thing for now is the fact that it has been extended. There is the opportunity for you to take advantage of that. So I would advise anyone who needs that opportunity to talk to them. The nice thing that we found for most people is because it's all online these days in terms of being able to access banking information and everything else, most of the time when it comes to applying for these holidays, it's just as simple as just logging in and just going through the kind of going through the systems on there and going to your mortgage and be able to do it all online. So most people have been able to find that it's quite a straightforward process, but just make sure that you kind of use that opportunity and take advantage of it if you need to. Again, we don't know kind of the repercussions or anything like that yet, but I think at the moment the most important thing is just cash flow and making sure that we can survive at this point in time. Chester from Facebook Messenger asked, I've recently quit my job to go full-time self-employed. Can you please help me understand what running costs are allowable or tax offset? I want to invest in a new computer and furniture for my business. Well, Chester, the first thing about that is 100% when it comes to costs and running costs and everything else, that the ones you've just said there, a new computer and a new furniture are all going to be allowable. The kind of litmus test is it usable for the business and exclusively available for the business. Now, when it comes to computer and furniture, obviously you're going to be using it for not just business purposes, but for other things. But majority of the reason that you would have bought that computer, I assume, was to help your business grow and move that business forward. So we were allowed to put that in. And thankfully, there's no kind of personal cost that goes on with that as well. So what I would highly recommend in that point is that you just keep notes of all these expenses. If you're using QuickBooks or you're using anything like that, just make sure that it's been recorded. And then the important thing then is not forgotten when it comes to doing your self-employed. But yes, most of those costs there that you've mentioned are 100% allowable. So that's great. And just think about, your standard kind of getting yourself to work. The kind of most important thing is all about your income. So if you've got a cost that associates with the income that's there, then most of the time you're able to claim for it. So just go from that point of view. Marcus from Twitter DM asks, hi Aaron, what is your advice for businesses to manage cash flow without depending much on the government support scheme? Great question there, Marcus. Yeah, and it's one of those where it's all about managing that cash flow. The most important thing at the moment is keeping on top of it. Don't bury your head in the sand, and don't look at kind of not looking into what's going on. One of the great things at the moment is QuickBooks did release during lockdown a cash tool planner. And the idea of that cash tool planner is it actually predicts your next 90 days worth of cash flow. So what I would highly recommend is utilizing tools like that, getting as much information in there, start seeing exactly what your run rate and your burn rate is going to be. And that's going to give you much more confidence in being able to carry on and be able to make sure that you don't need those support packages that are there. And then one of the things is, if you've not already, do consider that bounce back loan scheme. It's not a grant, so you will have to pay it back at some point. But your first 12 months is interest free. Your first 12 months is also repayment free. Worst case scenario, you take that money and you put it into a bank account and you don't spend it, and then 12 months you go and pay that back. But at least, though, if there is any issues or we can further lockdown or whatever happens, at least you've got access to that capital to keep your business afloat. So that's what we've been advising clients as much as possible. The only eligibility other than having a UK bank account for a bounce back loan is the fact that you've been adversely affected by coronavirus, but I'm struggling to find any business out there that isn't been adversely affected. So do have a look and try and go through from there. We've got a couple more questions then. So Hassan from Twitter DM asks, good morning, Aaron. Does an email qualify as written agreement? This is context to the job support scheme. I haven't had to apply for it yet, but might have to within this new lockdown. Emails are definitely qualifiable, but it is just about the wording and just making sure that you have that substance behind it to make sure that everything's included. So what I would just do there is just make sure that you take the relevant advice, make sure that you've got everything included that's going through there. We're in a society now where electronic signatures and electronic mails are available. Personally, what we tend to do is we try and take it one step further, and we do try and get like an Adobe sign or equivalent way of just getting a signature, just to make sure everyone's in agreement with any form of contract changes or any form of trying to make sure that we're applying any, or we need anything for audit trail. But these days an email is normally acceptable. Final question then, and then we will do the wrap up. So Tamara from Facebook Live asks, please can you explain the CBLIS loan? Do you have to repay back the loan? Excellent question there. And basically what Tamara is asking here is all about the fact that before the bounce back loan was announced, there was another loan scheme that was all about interruption of business. And it's more really based on the bigger businesses. It was about getting cash flow over to them and making sure they had opportunities for it. From majority of the community that have been talking, that we talk to here on Ask the Expert, highly recommend that you look at the bounce back loan scheme. It should be far more beneficial to you to be on that scheme, and it should be something that you'll be able to look into. But just like the bounce back loan, the CBLIS scheme, it's also something you'd have to repay. So on both of those situations, you're going to have to kind of look into long term how you're going to make those repayments and make sure that that is available. And then that's it. We're into the last of those questions, and that's all completed now. So while we were going through those questions, you were asked a poll, and on that poll, we were asking you, are you confident your business can survive the new national lockdown? 71% of you said yes, and that's great news. That's really, really impressive, and I'm really grateful that that's quite high. That's something we kind of strive for. That's what we want to make sure we get as much information to you as possible. 29% unfortunately were saying they're not ready for it at this point in time. But my advice to that is to keep listening to Ask the Expert, keep coming along. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to give as much information we possibly can, try and give you the opportunity to look through all of the information that's thrown at you and see what's relevant for you as a small business. And hopefully then we can all get together, find a way to survive this. And with that then, that is the end of Ask the Expert today. Can't believe it's flown through yet again, another half an hour come through. If you have any questions, then please do get in touch with the QuickBooks support team or myself on hello@boffix.com. More than happy to ask any small business related question. Want to make sure that as many as you out there can get as much support as possible. Coming up on Access Ask the Expert tomorrow, though. We've got a really great guest, Brendan Kirkconnell. He is the MD of Christie Engineering Solutions and has seen his company through recession and ups and downs of the UK economy, maintaining steady incremental growth. Tune in to get some great insightful advice for your business. And if I remember from last time when Brendan was on, we had some really great inspiration there in terms of how to pivot a business and how to keep your business going through this sort of time. And to be fair, the timing couldn't be better during the news we've just had. So please do get in touch tomorrow. Do ask Brendan some questions, and certainly I know myself, I'll be there waiting to quiz him on how he's been able to be so successful during this time. A reminder, if you need any more advice, join the official Intuit QuickBooks SMB community group on Facebook. Accountants and business experts just like myself are on hand 24/7 to ask your questions. So do make sure you get yourself over there, and I'll definitely be there to answer questions accordingly. Thank you all for tuning in this morning. Hope you have a good day, and I hope you all stay safe. Bye for now.